So hello, it's Louise K and I wanted to do a live feed today to talk about something which happened to me over the weekend, and I wanted to share it with you, not because I sort of want to make a sort of a drama about what actually happened to me, but some really amazing things came out of what actually happened. And I thought it would be an amazing opportunity to share with you a different way of looking at things, because you know me, I'm always looking at things on the outside and trying to find out how I can look at things differently to change my life and do things differently. So what am I going to share with you? So if you are the type of person that is closed off, doesn't want to look at something from a different perspective, if you're so set in your ways, if you're not open to just a completely different perspective on something, you might want to just save yourself some time and switch off. However, if you're the type of person that is really open to looking at something from a different perspective, if you're tired of the BS that you've been given from certain factions of our health industry, or you're looking for an alternative approach to some of the things which you might be encountering yourself, then stay tuned, because whether you've actually experienced vertigo or Meniere's disease, or vertigo and Meniere's disease, that's all really, it doesn't really matter what your symptom is. I'm going to show you something that happened and how I used that, and you can apply that to your own life, and you can apply that to some of your own symptoms. And what I would say is, if you have got different symptoms and you're struggling to make the connection in the way that I'm going to sort of just talk through mine, please just drop me a note on the comments. If you drop a note on the comments, I'll happily give you some guidance and happily give you some of my thoughts. And to be honest, what I've found when people do that is it actually helps other people, because you're not going to be the only person that's going to be suffering with those symptoms. So what you might be suffering with, somebody else could be suffering with, and so it's going to help them too. So without further ado, what I'm going to just share with you is what actually has happened over the last week. So last week, around about Monday, Tuesday, I can't remember when it was really, I wasn't feeling particularly well at all. And I woke up and I had the typical flu-y symptoms, you know. Living in England, we're moving into autumn, the weather's getting colder. So typically that's what most people believe, that this is sort of the flu-y symptoms that most people get moving from the summer to the autumn. But the thing is, I've never believed in that. I've never believed in the flu symptoms. So I was sort of sitting there thinking, okay, well, what's been going on? What is my body trying to tell me? What is it that I sort of believe that those symptoms, when I've got the runny nose, the sore throat, etc., for me, that is resolution. So I'm resolving something because my body is coming to sort of the healing process. So I look back on some of the things which had happened in the sort of the previous week or so, and sure enough, when I linked it back to some of the events which had been happening, I had actually been coming to some resolution about things. I'd been making a decision in my life about certain things. I certainly was putting my foot down. I wasn't prepared to take the BS that certain people were giving me, and I finally made the decision that, you know, my gut feel many years ago was what I should have followed, and whatever. But the fact remains, I'd made the resolution. So in my body made the resolution too. But the fact remains that sort of as the week went on, I was feeling worse and worse and worse. But by sort of Wednesday, Thursday, I thought, well, actually, I'm feeling much better. Anyway, I sort of went into the weekend. I went up to visit my parents, and on Saturday, I must admit, I felt as if I was walking, you know that feeling when you get off a boat and you're sort of not quite sure, you know, your footing is a little bit off. I was feeling all over the place. And by Saturday afternoon, I was feeling quite nauseous and just didn't feel myself, and thought I was sort of having another resolution sort of experience. So went to bed quite early on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday when I woke up, all hell let loose. I was feeling nauseous. I had a banging headache. I felt as if somebody smacked me around the head with a baseball bat. My heart palpitations were like coming out my chest. I was burning up, and then I collapsed. So in a fear, I guess, my mum called an ambulance, and the ambulance guys came round. Now, that's not sort of there to sort of say, oh, you know, look at me, whatever happening, because I was sitting there thinking, wow, this is incredible. What is my body doing? And all I kept on saying to myself was, what is my body doing? Why is my body reacting this way? To the point that, you know, I'd blacked out, I'd fainted, I collapsed, I was throwing up, my head was banging, my heart was palpitations, and in actual fact, they thought I was having a heart attack. So that's why the ambulance was called. Anyway, when they finally got me sort of into a situation where I wasn't throwing up and I could actually speak without sort of talking all over the place, and sort of settled me down, I started to question, well, what's actually going on? Why is my body feeling like this? And it was interesting because when about half an hour later, I actually contacted my mental health master trainer, Sammy Thorpe, and I was just trying to explain to her what the feelings that I was having, and she was sort of confirming some of the thoughts that I'd been having. And what I wanted to share with you is, if you have vertigo or if you suffer Meniere's disease, they actually diagnosed me with severe vertigo. And I happened to have a conversation with my brother who has Meniere's disease, I think yesterday or the day before. And I was talking to him about how I'd dissected what was actually happening to me, and how what I'd experienced and the things that I was experiencing in my life at the time, did that relate to him? Was it resonating with him? And sure enough, everything about some of the things, you know, the higher themes about what happened were things that he was experiencing, or he experiences whenever he has a bout of his Meniere's, the bout that he gets when he's got Meniere's disease. So I wanted to share it with you because I think it's really important that we start to look at our bodies and look at what's going on, rather than taking the easy option, which is what the doctor wanted to do, and shove these down my throat, which actually, thankfully, my body had a different idea, because every time they tried to put one of these in my throat, I threw it up within about 10 minutes. So, and actually I was just like, I don't want to take this, because it was just really against my whole philosophy. But they were saying, but the interesting thing actually was that they were saying that I would have to be taking these for 3 weeks because of the severity of the vertigo bout that I had. I took one and I threw it up, and I'm perfectly okay now. I have nothing, no side effects, nothing whatsoever from the vertigo bout, or whatever you want to call it. But sure enough, if I'd taken those tablets, what I think is really interesting, this wasn't the real main cause of this feed, but that section there is what these tablets are for. This and this is all the contradictions for taking those tablets. Now, doesn't that just strike you as a little bit one-sided? If that's what it's supposed to be curing, but it's going to give you cause for concern over 3 pages, I don't even want to go there. I'm just not going to go there. Anyway, so how to help you with your vertigo, how to help you with Meniere's. When I was going through what I was going through, these are the notes I started writing. I wanted to know what it was that I was experiencing, what I was feeling, and I wanted to get it down on paper so that I could make the connection between what my body was doing and what I wasn't resolving in my personal life, which was causing my body to do what it was doing. So, nausea. What was I feeling sick about? What was making me sick? What situation was making me sick? Dizzy. Dizziness comes when you're just going round and round in circles. So what was it in my life that I was going round and round and round and round in circles about? Well, I could quite easily identify that. Feeling all over the place. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. I couldn't get up, I couldn't sit down. I was feeling out of places. I was feeling out of sorts when I stood up, when I was feeling out of sorts when I sat down. I just couldn't feel comfortable. So what in my life wasn't I feeling comfortable with? What in my life was I feeling all out of sorts with? Well, once again, I could relate that to situations which had been happening recently. I couldn't stand up. Where in my life couldn't I stand up for myself? Well, I did stand up for myself, and I think that's my resolution. I was standing up for myself for the first time in a long time on certain issues. The biggest thing for me is I lost my balance. I couldn't stand up. I literally fell over. I collapsed. So what was I feeling in my life that was collapsing around me? Because I was collapsing. So my body was feeling unstable. So where in my life was I feeling unstable? So once again, I could relate that to situations where I wasn't feeling stable. I wasn't feeling safe. That I didn't have any balance in my life, and so I could sort of start looking at that. The other thing was, I felt like it was, actually when it was not a pleasant sort of thing when you got an ambulance being called and you got all these paramedics around you, and then the doctors and my mom and everybody's like, oh my God, what's going on? It was chaos, and it was just like, God, it was just so much noise and so much stuff around me. So it made me think about, well, where in my life am I experiencing chaos? Where in my life is there just too much going on? Overwhelm. Where in my life am I feeling overwhelmed? And sure enough, I could link it back to overwhelm. Out of control. Well, in that moment on Sunday when everything was just going all over the place, I was completely out of control. So once again, where in my life have I experienced things that are going completely out of control, where I'm not able to stand up for myself, where there's this massive overwhelm and confusion and chaos going around me? It was hard for me to stand up, but like I said just earlier, I had stood up for something, and I was standing up for things for this particular area for the first time. And so I reckon that was my body making some resolution about the fact that I was actually standing up for myself for the first time. But more importantly, where was I feeling knocked down? Now that was a key thing for me, because when I started to think about, okay, I fell down. Well, where is it in my life that I feel like I'm falling down and I'm not meeting expectations? And where is it that I'm carrying so much that I can't stand up any longer? And once again, I could start linking that back to some situations and some scenarios where that was prevalent in my life. So I started looking at that. And do I feel safe? Well, if I've just collapsed and I'm falling all over the place and I can't stand up, no, I didn't feel safe. I was feeling completely vulnerable. So again, linking it back, where in your life are you feeling unsafe and vulnerable? But then the interesting thing was, those are all the impacts of actually what happened, and I was linking it back. And the thing is, with the work that I do, obviously I'm sharing what I do on a regular basis if anything happens in my life, but what I do in my clients is I get them to think back, okay, let's think about this. It's like being a private investigator for your own life. It's like sitting there and going, okay, where was all of this created? Because this didn't just start now, and it didn't start last week, and it didn't start the week before. So it's like my body would have been giving me the signals, and I would have been ignoring them because that's what most people do. And it would have been giving me some more signals, and I would probably have missed them as well. And it got to the point where the only way that my body could get my attention was dropping me to the floor and actually making me take note. Now, the thing is, now I've done this work, I've actually written down all the feelings that I was feeling as I was going through those symptoms. And I can start linking it back. I can start linking it back to situations where I haven't perhaps resolved events in my life, or situations or confronted things which I probably thought that I had and I haven't. And then you can start piecing the pieces together. And then actually, even though that might sound like an awful lot of things to have to work on, they've got such a common theme. And so I could actually, once I've got into the energy and figuring out, okay, what if I was to rise above all of this, what is this whole scenario teaching me about? What is it that my body needs me to know? And then I can do that work and I can get to that situation and actually get resolution around that. And then sure enough, it's like a tabletop. If you get to the resolution on the main thing, then all the legs just start to drop. So that's the work that you need to do. Start being your own investigator. Start challenging why your body is doing what it's doing, because it's not doing it for no reason. Now the thing is, probably 6-7 years ago, I would have probably happily taken all those tablets and just sat and thought I've got vertigo and lived with it, or decided I was going to take on the label of Meniere's disease. But the point is, that's not my life anymore. I don't believe that my body is doing anything abstractly. It's doing something for a reason, and it's giving me information. And this information is going to help me become a better person. It's going to help me take my life to a different stage. And it's going to enable me to sort of evolve on a sort of personal basis. Because when I start to understand what the programs I am running on a consistent basis, then I can release them and I can sort of start moving on to things which are more productive for me. So you still need to do the work if you're going to identify what's been the cause of it. But what I would just say to you is, if you have any symptoms, start looking at what is it about the symptoms? What is it trying to tell you? What are you doing, or what are you having to do as a result of having those symptoms? Because quite literally, Sunday stopped me in my tracks. I mean, I had a lot of things I needed to do on Sunday and I wanted to do on Sunday, and I had an awful lot of things I wanted to do at the start of the week, which just got completely knocked by the wayside. But it also gave me a fantastic opportunity to start looking at some of the things which had been going on in my life, which I was just too busy to focus on. And, you know, I'm sort of more than enough aware now that when I'm too busy and it's important, my body will get my attention. So I hope that's been of help. I just wanted to share with you a completely different perspective, because at the end of the day, if you want different results, you've got to start thinking differently. And if you're thinking like you've always thought, you're always going to get the same results. So start thinking differently. And if this has helped you to just even maybe slightest way start thinking about something differently, then it's been absolutely worth it, and it's been my pleasure to share this with you. But like I said earlier at the feed, if there are any symptoms or anything that you're challenged with at the moment, please drop them in the comments box. I'd love to hear from you, and if I can support you and help you in any way to sort of make some sense of what it could be outside of the traditional model thinking, it would be my absolute pleasure to help you out. So with that, I hope you have an amazing rest of the week and a lovely weekend wherever you are in the world. Take care. Bye-bye.